Mhm. Okay.
We are about to go live.
Okay.
I think we are live now.
Okay. Let me look for you here.
Yes, I think we are live now.
Yeah, we are
Assalamu
live.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We are live
Walaikum
now on
assalam.
FB live. Thank you,
Walaikum
everyone.
assalam.
So this is International Zakat Dialogue, and I'm very happy to be here on FB Live. With me is the one expert on Zakat, Mr. Namungo Hamza. He's the head of research and training at House of Zakat and Waqaf, Uganda. And let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Yusuf Hadi Osman. I work as a senior lecturer at Center for Islamic Finance Education and Research, UNISHAMS. We are located in Kedah, Malaysia, and we are live between Malaysia and Uganda. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Hamza.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dr. Yusuf.
How's everything?
We are very fine, inshallah, though the situation is calm. But the internet and the communication, digital communication platforms are all open, so we can hear what's happening around the world, inshallah.
So I heard that your country has implemented MCO, Movement Control Order,
Mm.
since March 18. Tell us about that.
Yes, yes, we have a presidential directive. Our president has been addressing us on different occasions, but since March, around March 18th, he gave a directive to close the schools, universities, and all institutions of learning, and directed all the students to go back home because, in his view, he was saying that this could create a hub of infections. So all are home. Then after a week, he gave a directive again, instructing all public transports to stop or banning them to operate for a period of 32 days, and they stopped. And then he let private vehicles to move around, provided that there are 3 passengers. But again, he stopped that also because there were many passengers and the movement was uncontrollable until he stopped all private vehicles and allowed motorbikes, bicycles, and government vehicles, but with essential services, not all sectors. Yes.
Very good. How's the situation right now? The new cases, are they under control?
Hello?
So the situation is under control now.
I don't know how the situation is there in Malaysia.
Okay, in Malaysia,
Okay.
we started implementing the MCO or the curfew or the stay home campaign. And I think we have been very successful in flattening the curve, meaning that we have been able to flatten the curve.
Okay.
The new cases is under control. As of
Okay.
yesterday, the new cases was 110, and those discharged from hospital was 119 people. So that means the number of discharge is greater than the number of new cases.
Alhamdulillah.
So that's a good news.
Yeah, it's very good.
So we are very strict now. We have to be very strict now so that the MCO
Situation.
will be successful.
Okay.
So the efforts have been implemented by the world communities, not only in Malaysia and Uganda, but also
Okay.
throughout the world to address the spread of this COVID-19. Every country has been affected, either directly or indirectly. So we are
Indirectly.
now
Yes.
in the pandemic, which has created fear and
Mm,
scare for all of us. Therefore, the best course
mm,
of action to control this pandemic
mm.
is to isolate ourselves, either
Okay.
voluntarily or forcefully through certain
Mm,
rules and regulation. So
of course.
if this is not successful, we will run
Mm,
into a much bigger crisis. So it's very important that the campaign is very successful. From
of
what I
course.
see, from what I see, if
Mm,
this campaign is not successful, there'll be many adverse effects. So
of course.
currently we are working from home. If this
Mm,
prolongs until the end of the year or until
mhm,
August, like many experts have anticipated, the first thing that will happen is
mm,
some people will go jobless. Work from
of
home
course.
will switch to no work at home because the
Mm,
operations of the companies had to be closed due to the decrease
mm,
in the demand from domestic
yeah.
and also from outside. And also there is a
Mm,
pressure of work. Some people will have to be
mm,
terminated. If people are jobless, there will be higher social costs. And currently, our
mm,
government is running a very high cost to meet the needs of the people because uh,
mm.
because of the MCO. So,
Mm.
how about in your country? Is there any uh, stimulus, economic stimulus to combat this so-called COVID-19 pandemic?
That's very good question, Dr. Yusuf. In our country so far, we've had a lot of discussions, suggestions on the political platforms, and our president and is the task force he put forward to cater for everything around COVID-19 pandemic. They have one message they've been telling the public that now it's a matter of life and death. We are yet, or we cannot discuss any economic terms, anything like that. But we should just first contain the virus. And so yes, it's very good. The government has contained it. The cases are fewer. If you look at the last around 5 days, I think we've registered around two cases, new cases, and there's been a reduced number of cases now. And those ones that were reported and quarantined or taken to hospitals earlier, So far, there are 8 cases, there are 8 patients that have recovered fully. They tested twice negative, and they've gone back home. But our Ministry of Health and the President, they're saying that we cannot be complacent, we cannot jubilate. We have to tighten our belts and see the virus is completely uprooted out of the country. Yes, the central bank the central bank rate, or CBR, was reduced by the Central Bank of Uganda by 1%. But as you know, the government is saying that we cannot discuss business, economics, and all that. Though some traders are saying that however much the central bank reduced the CBR, the commercial banks, when they borrow, they will not reduce the interest rates. So the government
So,
has to get involved in that
yes.
way. Mm,
So
yes,
everybody needs to make sacrifice during this crisis. And
yes,
here in Malaysia, our Prime Minister has announced the economic stimulus package amounting to 250 billion ringgit. That's a very high cost for the government.
okay,
250 billion ringgit as an economic stimulus package. And out
okay,
of that total, the public will receive 55%, about 126 billion ringgit in
mm,
terms of cash handouts and loan moratorium, which
mm,
provides assistance to low and middle income households, which has
mm,
been hurt due to the curtailed economic activities during this period under the movement control order. And small and medium enterprises receive quite a lot also, in the
mm,
amount of 101 billion ringgit is
mm,
as a form of assistance, such
okay,
as loan moratorium, wage subsidy, and so on. And the Malaysian economy received a boost of 3 million ringgit in the efforts to strengthen our investment and our external trade until
okay,
consumer and business will get back to normal. Hopefully, we
mm,
can be successful in our effort to implement the MCO. So hopefully, the sooner the better for us, because
inshallah. Okay. So this 250 billion, is it in US dollars or
ringgit,
Malaysian currency?
Malaysian currency in ringgit,
So how much is is
250
it in
billion
dollar, equivalence of dollar?
is equal to
Okay.
about 60
60
billion US
billion US
dollars.
dollars.
60
Okay.
billion US dollars.
So specifically, stimulus package has to do more with the social amenities, social services for the people, or it also entails the business community. How have been the business community there been helped in terms of loans, in terms of businesses, especially the tourism sector in Malaysia? How are they been helped by the government?
The government has been trying to help all the sectors, the consumer
Okay.
sector, the business sector, SME,
Mm,
the macroeconomic sector. So for the
mm,
consumer sector,
okay.
um, there'll
Mm,
be a subsidy in the
okay.
amount of 8.8 billion ringgit,
Okay.
um, and loan moratorium in the amount of 24 billion ringgit, and civil servant will receive
Mm,
1.2 billion ringgit. And also there
mm,
is an electric bill discount, 100 million ringgit. For the SMEs, small and medium enterprises, loan moratorium in the amount of 35 billion ringgit,
okay.
KWSP and Human Resource Development Fund, 10.4 billion ringgit, government guarantee scheme 5 billion, and BNM special relief facility 3 billion ringgit, and income tax deferment. So that's the relief for the business sector.
Okay, so here, as we mentioned earlier, so far we are handling a matter of life and death. The government is yet to issue any yet to discuss, but the parliament has been engaging through its committees. But when the president was addressing the nation, he spoke about the consumer, those ones who are operating in lower class jobs that cannot be the working. So he requested, he didn't give a directive per se, he requested the landlords, for those who are renting, to not to evict their tenants because of rent, and those ones who are obligations, the president asked those the creditors to be lean on them or to wait, because the situation is unbearable. No sector is operating, and so far they are the virus, its effects. Maybe later the government will engage the financial institutions. They will engage the traders through their institutions to work a way forward and see what they can do. But other sectors so far, they are there silently working. Others have stopped. But those who have been affected most are those people who are working in tourism sector, hotels, restaurants. Talk about the travel agencies, those who are driving taxis, carrying passengers from airports, and all that. Yeah, we have a lot of them in our asking for a bailout. What can we do? We've parked our vehicles. Of course, no one is asking for school fees now. What has been applied for, more than 80% is food, essential services. Essential services, yes.
So we are praying that this pandemic crisis will end soon, because the longer it prolongs, the more the adverse effect on all of us. So
okay.
So now let's go to let's discuss the role of House of Zakat and Waqaf in Uganda in alleviating those burdened, those people affected by this COVID-19, especially the poor and the needy. What has the House of Zakat done to help those Asnaf, especially the poor and needy affected by this COVID-19?
Uganda, I think when the president was giving directives, he outlined a few sectors or a few institutions that should remain operating. And in his when he was reading that, it was just under this. So that tells you that there were few institutions, or there were few sectors that were left open. And one of them, the NGOs, the charity institutions, They were not so it's only the health, services, electricity, power companies, water, financial institutions, and others. A smaller number of other sectors each other. This tells you that if someone wants to deposit zakat, you will only deposit it at the office or in the financial institutions like banks. So if the charity sector is not mentioned in the essentials, it means banks will have fewer deposits, hence the underlying consequences. So House of Zakah has not been so busy, but we couldn't let the situation affect those who we were looking after. We launched before even the lockdown, we had launched the Zakah Food Care Program. This Zakah Food Care Program, it was not an extension, it's not an extension, but it's one of the benchmarks or benchmarked ideas we had from Lembaga Zakah Negeri Keda, or the Board of Zakah of Keda, when we had a 2 weeks benchmarking trip there. We found the Zakah Food Bank, a full program, irrespective of any emergencies. It was already launched. So we decided to benchmark and bring it here. But it had not gained traction before this emergence of COVID-19. But we to the Mozaki or those who pay Zakah to amplify or to increase the speed at which they pay Zakah. Here we don't enforce. The structures are so we urge them to food, to bring 10 kilograms, 50 kilograms at our offices, to send the equivalence in currency, in money, so that we beef up the stores of the Zakat Food Care Program.
Very good. Here in Kedah, Lembaga Zakat Negeri Kedah, or the Kedah State Zakat Authority.
Again, the president.
The Zakat Authority in Kedah have launched a system called Asnaf Care, so that the community and the public can cooperate in distributing food supplies to those who have been cut off from food in accordance with the Movement Control Act, which began in March 18, to ensure the sufficient zakat funds were available for distribution at such critical times. And I think the Kedah State Zakat Board has done a tremendous job in helping those in need. So the Zakat Board has distributed to 5,000, Lembaga Zakat Negeri Kedah has already distributed 57,600 food supplies and 172,000 cans of sardines to all 576 mosques in the state of Kedah. In Kedah, every mosque has its own food bank, and this food bank is sponsored by Zakat Authority. So for those people who have been cut off from the supply of food, they can go to the assistant amil at the respective masjid and can apply for the basic needs like food and drink, sardines, etc. So the cost of financing this food supply is very, very high. It is estimated that we need 36 million ringgit to supply the food to 700,000 families over the next 6 months. We expect this crisis will end in 6 months, and we need 36 million ringgit. So for those of you who want to donate, you can go to asnafcare.com.my, asnafcare.com.my. For those of you, those rich people, those who have surplus of money, so we encourage them to join the Zakat program. Just go to asnafcare.com.my.
So,
And I think the
so far,
biggest challenges facing Zakat authority in Kedah and also in Uganda is that the income received by Zakat authority is less than the expenditure. So what happens? The expenditure is more than the income received by Zakat authority, and the Zakat authority now runs a deficit. In Kedah, the deficit as of March 26, 2020, the Kedah Zakat Board has shown a deficit of 8 million ringgit because the total collection was 32 million, around 32 million, and the expenditure to distribute to Asnaf has reached almost 40 million. So roughly the deficit now is 8 million. So this is the dilemma that we are facing. What about in Uganda? Do you run deficit or okay?
Okay, in Uganda, what has been distributed so far under our Zakat food care program has been done through the government task force. We don't run a deficit now because our operations or our distribution activities were put on hold by the presidential directive banning the distribution of food. You cannot distribute food unless you take it through the government task force. So there we took of food and we gave out. Okay, so the government distributes this food to the general public, those who are vulnerable or those who are poor. That's where the food goes. So they don't selectively choose that this is a Muslim or this is not. They just give out. But what we've seen so far is that the distribution of food is slower. Those who are given food before, that's like 2 weeks back, now they ask for more food because what was given to them now is over. Just to take you back, the food parcel that the government gives out is around 6 kilograms of maize flour and 2 kilograms of sugar, plus other essential things. But if you have more than one family members, they can compute and give you more. But you know, in African context, people live in, we are in, we so that food is too small. Going to household Zakat operations, we collecting food, we engaging the government through the national task force, requesting them to give us permission, but under their guidelines, to give out food to the Muslims who are going to fast the whole month of Ramadan. And hopefully we think the government will consider. We know it's a very huge task because that will be taking exceptions. They've been lobbying to let them operate, but the government cannot. So it's an exception, but we hope the government will consider, inshallah. So we are engaging them to see what we can do. we are engaging the general public, the Muzaki and corporate companies who have been seeing donating food to the National Task Force that look here, this is also a task. The Muslims are there. They play a big part in business. Now they need to be bailed out. How can we bail them out? We need to give them food. Can you give them food when you don't have permission by the government? No. So we are asking for permission. After getting the permission, we hope to engage all the stakeholders in this crisis. You know, we know them. It's the government, the donor party, and then those who need food. So inshallah, we hope the government will be good to us. They will help out. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, so so that's the challenge right now because yeah, in my opinion, the dilemma that Zakat Authority is facing is that we expect the collection to decrease in the future because of the MCO, and we expect the distribution to be increased because there'll be more and more people who needs assistance. So that's the dilemma. If this trend continues, the revenue continue to decrease and the expenditure continue to increase, then Zakat Authority will have the deficit, the increase in the deficit. So what do you have any suggestion on how to increase the collection of Zakat?
Yeah, now during this pandemic or during this period, people, both the Zakat payer or the contributor, I think they will need more. They will need to hear more of distributing or giving out food than asking them to donate. That's a perception case. Because first of all, no business sector is operating now. It's the government only in Uganda. Unlike in Malaysia, we have the internet infrastructure, or the Industrial Revolution 4.0 is not so deep here in Uganda. So business activity is generally slower or mute. And we cannot be vigorous to argue Muzaki or Zakah payers to pay the Zakah, but we can only engage them gently, because the situation, someone will tell you, look, hey, my hotel is not operating, my food store, the business is not operating. In such cases, so I cannot pay my Zakah now. On the Muzaki's email and contribute now, or how they can best contribute now is to engage them to contribute Sadakat. Zakah, yes, they can, and we urge them to, but what will likely food and money, but in form of Sadaqah, which we can feed to those in need. Again, they will ask you, you're collecting, but how are you going to distribute when the government banned or yeah, we engage the government and we're seeking permission to work with them to distribute food. We hope Zakah collections, they are small now. Actually, they have reduced tremendously. But I think, again, they will reduce because people now will look to, we have to adjust at 3 or 6 months after the lockdown. So every businessman or every company will now look at their cash assets or current assets as gold per se. Budgets, but again, it's a responsibility of the Zakat institution, especially those that are not state operated, to be creative, to be innovative, to be engaged. You look at how did you fare, or how did you use Zakat resources in the pandemic and the lockdown? Did you help people? That will be some sort of accountability. And then you can tell them, yeah, we did this and that. And then they will be paying. We hope around August. Let's look at the situation in totality without looking at the effects of COVID-19. But still, they will still be prevalent. That's what I think. I don't know how you look at it in Malaysian context.
So remember our research on zakat distribution and sustainable goals. So,
okay.
So one of the most important aspects of zakat distribution is to be able to achieve the SDGs. We have 17 SDGs,
Okay.
but now, in my opinion, we don't have to go for all the SDGs. The very basic of SDG is number one, no poverty, and number two, no hunger. Number three, good health and well-being, and then quality education. So I think the zakat institutions in Kedah and also in Uganda need to look into this achievement towards achieving SDGs. And also, we talked about maqasid sharia. There are 5 maqasid sharia. Number one, protection of faith or religion. Number two, protection of lives. Number three, protection of lineage. Number four, protection of intellect. And number five, protection of property. So during this pandemic, I think the most important is protection of lives and also protection of lineage and property. So I think both zakat institutions in Uganda and Kedah have done a tremendous job. And I congratulate House of Zakat and Waqaf in Uganda.
Okay. But I think
for those of you
looking. Hello. Dr.
Hello,
Yusuf.
Yes,
yeah, I think looking at the SDGs, because people following our discussion here, we can throw small light on it. SDGs are the global goals, that's 17 goals. And you're saying that we need to focus more on the first and second goals, I think. The first is ending poverty, and the second one is ending hunger. I think when you look at on social media here in Uganda, many commentators say that the virus is there, but what will kill them more or faster will be the hunger virus. They say the hunger virus at home, it's too much and it doesn't discriminate. Old and young, it's so dangerous. Yes, I agree with you that the SDGs 17 now, we can reduce them to and look at keenly the first and the second, actually, because the first one is no poverty. Yes, we know that those who are poor are most likely to lack food. That's the linkage between first and second goal. But what is needed now is saving or having food at home. If you link it to Maqasid Sharia, as you mentioned, I think the first one the Maqasid Sharia, the first one, mentions protection of life. Yes, we hope that if you provide food, you provide essential services, then you can preserve or you can protect someone's life. I think it's also a responsibility of scholars. I understand that you head or you are in the Center of Islamic Finance at your prestigious university. I think now scholars in Sharia, the jurists and all those people, they need to look at what can be done post COVID-19, because I know then we shall have more time, we shall have more movement, we can access resources for research, unlike now. So we need to look more at how Zakah can be used or can be engaged to create relief, or we prepare for emergencies before they happen, in terms of creating food, in terms of having safety nets for the poor. Yeah, that's my opinion regarding Makasdi Sharia and SDG 17.
Yes.
Yes.
So right now, I think to distribute to those who are in need, the poor and the needy. So I think this is the right time for those muzakis to change the
Okay.
attitude, because during my research in 2016, I found out that there are people who are non-compliant to paying income zakat.
Okay.
Non-compliant means either they don't pay the zakat or they pay but not in the total full amount. So the case of non-compliance is still a serious matter, I think,
Yes.
because the compliance is still low. So right now, during this crisis, it's a high time for Muzakis to change their attitude. Before, they did not comply with zakat payment because, number one, because of the attitude. They think that by paying income zakat will have no impact on others. They say, oh, why must I pay zakat?
Okay.
My paying zakat does not help other people. They do not see in front of their eyes how their zakat can help other people. So now I think it's a high time to change the attitude. So please, those who have more money, those who have the surplus of wealth, and you are the muzakis, um, you have all the characteristics of the zakat payers. Please, this is a high time to change the attitude. Please pay zakat, because zakat will do wonders to those people affected by COVID-19. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very clarion call. It's very good. And the income, Mozaki, those people earning income and pay zakah. If you look at our statistics here at household zakah, you know, in Uganda, there are many people operating zakah on masjid level and others, but it's difficult to access the statistics, how much they collect and how much they distribute, how much they collect per sector. But depending on what we have, we realize that for us on our side, the corporate zakah or zakah takes the biggest portion in terms of income. And if you look at the potential is too big, depending on the profitability of these companies. If you look at it around 200,000 US dollars, and you have 4 companies, that would be around $1 million or 4 million ringgit in your currency. And if this pandemic or lockdown, the average expenditure they incur or how much they spend on basic needs, if you look again at on average, 5 members on the spend around Malaysian ringgit, yes, 400 Malaysian ringgit to stock food for a month. That would be very cheap. So if you get around 4 corporate companies that can pay their zakat in total, that means feeding alone when distributing zakat, because some muzaki or corporate companies will ask you that how do you distribute the zakat? What is the effectiveness of your projects? They think that feeding is not part of it. Or against their side, but you're more likely to argue against their side during this COVID-19 lockdown because food is needed like never before. But most muzaki look at how we distribute the effectiveness of your with a business or economically to get themselves out of poverty. You can attract more zakat payers. But again, even if you attract more that are not corporate zakat payers, you have many zakat deposits, smaller in size, but very, very small in size, very many, but you will have less. So I think your call is okay, is very good. But again, we should add that corporate entities or corporate companies, they should also look at paying their social corporate responsibility partially into zakat institutions. If you look at Ramadan now, we have a lot of applications or requesting for food and everything. If you look at what we have and what again is the applications, then you just collapse and say, I need God to intervene now. So I don't know how it's there in Kedah. What sector gives more zakah in respect? Hello. Yes,
Okay,
Dr.
sorry about the interruption. There is
Okay.
there's a problem of internet connection.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you who have joined us, we are now live on this is an FB Live on the International Zakat Dialogue, and if you have questions, you can type your questions on FB, and we'll try to answer the questions. I think we are running out of time. We have about 10 more minutes.
Yes.
So I think the problem is now the number one is attitude. Number two is the perception towards the zakat authorities. Previously in 2016, my study found that some people were not compliant to zakat payment because they were not confident with the ability of the zakat authority to distribute equitably to asnafs. Some of them say, oh, if I better pay directly to asnaf rather than giving to zakat authorities. So that perception needs to be changed. I think in Kedah, Zakat Authority has done a tremendous job since 2016 in changing the perception. But it takes time, of course. It doesn't happen overnight. So number one, I think we have to have a paradigm shift among muzakis. Paradigm shift here means The attitude needs to change. The perception needs to change
Mm.
because in the environment of zakat, there is no law and there is no law,
Mm.
and the implementation of the law is quite weak.
Okay.
Meaning, if those muzakis do not pay zakat,
Mm.
no legal action will be taken
Mm.
against them.
Against you,
Unlike
yes.
unlike tax, if they don't pay tax, they'll
Mm.
be penalized. They have to file
Mm.
e-filing tax every year. But for
Okay.
zakat, we don't have the e-filing zakat. So for
Mm.
those of us watching this FB Live, I would like to suggest number one is the paradigm shift for all muzakis.
Oh.
Those rich people,
Mm.
those people who have surplus of money, need to shift their
Mm.
paradigm, shift to
Mm.
change the attitude, to change the perception,
Mm.
and have more
Mm.
confidence in the zakat authorities to do their job in the distribution
Okay.
of zakat. I think the
Mm.
zakat authority in Uganda and in Qatar has done a tremendous
Mm.
job. The proof is the expenditure is more
Mm.
than the revenue. Means
The revenue. True. Hello? Internet disruption. Hello, Dr. Yusuf.
so
Okay.
because there is no law and no
Uh,
implement the implementation of the law is quite weak.
yes,
So
quite.
what do you think, Mr. Hamza?
Yeah, in
Any other ideas on how to improve the collection of zakat?
one, I think I need to look at some Zakah institutions or Zakah organization in terms of da'wah or outreach. Yes, we understand the law; it's there, but it's more likely to be enforced in our. I don't know in Malaysia, but in Uganda we don't have a law. We just operate under the company law and as an institution limited by guarantee. So you need to we depend entirely on accountability, trust, and public awareness of Zakah. So I think in our context, we need to look at the innovativeness in terms of dawah, how we reach out to those who are muzaki, those who are going to pay. And secondly, our distribution strategies, because we cannot say that we are marketing zakah, but we should, in line of Maqasid Sharia, in line of Sharia and the Quran, we should distribute zakah, but with more caution on its effectiveness. Here I mean, we need to engage in programs that will have ultimate or good outcomes you can present to the muzaki. You see, you pay your zakah. Last year, we got this number of people out of poverty. We've taken this number of students at university. We gave out these machines uh, and this and that. So this more will attract more muzaki because they will see the viability of your initiatives, and then they will be more inclined to pay their zakah with the zakah institutions. That is in line with a country like Uganda, where you don't have a zakat law and you're more likely not to have one. So you have to entirely rely on creativeness and energy within the people you have. Yes. Do you think Malaysian zakat, the Malaysian government will ever enforce zakat law? That if you don't pay zakat, you're penalized or you have to pay. What do you think about Malaysia?
So zakat is actually a religious obligation, and those people who do not pay zakat,
Mm.
so in my studies, I found that religiosity plays a very significant
Mm.
role in compliance behavior of zakat.
Okay.
So the more religious the person becomes, the more likely he or she is going to pay zakat.
To pay zakat, yes.
So it's easier said than done. To increase the religiosity is easier said than done. But I
Yeah.
think what we can do is in the masjid, after the MCO, we should have more talk on zakat. So traditionally in masjids around the state of Kedah, after Maghrib, we have a Maghrib talk. But from my observation, the Maghrib talk focus on the specific ibadah, salat,
Okay.
fasting, and the basic ibadah. But
Haji.
we don't talk much about mu'amalah. We don't talk much about zakat and how it can influence the
Business.
the other people, the asnaf. So my suggestion is there should be more talk on zakat after the MCO to increase the compliance
Yeah.
behavior of zakat, to make us understanding that zakat is the third pillar of
Of
Islam.
Islam.
So
Yeah.
there'll be more. We need to have more and more campaign and talk and awareness
Also
about
in
the
Uganda,
obligation to pay zakat.
I think also in Uganda, what you've realized that now there's some kind of, I would not call it unity, but divergence in Islamic views, because maybe I think that the problem we are facing now does not discriminate any madhab, any religion or thinkings. We see more tolerance, we see down. We can sit down as Muslim institutions, the Muslim leadership, and look forward to how we can integrate our services, because we have many doing charity, we have many doing many things. Cohesive or more detailed programs that fail out of such situations that we are having now. Hopefully, I think this has been still a difficult situation, but it's going to help us think more and unlock more ideas on how Zakat and Wakaf, and how they can help the Muslim community sustainably. Because now we should look more about sustainability than relief and charity. That's when we're out of this lockdown. It's my opinion.
Yes, Mr. Hamza,
Yes,
we
Doctor.
are running short of time. We have about 2 minutes to go. And any concluding remark?
Okay.
1 minute.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Yusuf. I didn't get you.
Yes,
I didn't get
yes.
you.
You have 1 minute to give any concluding remark because we are running out of time.
Okay, thank you very much. In the interest of time, dear our viewers, both in Uganda and Malaysia, or Kedah specifically, it was very good to follow our conversation with Dr. Yusuf from University Unishams University in Kedah, and also from me, Hamza, from House of Zakat and Waqf Uganda. as I conclude, I urge everyone to stay home, stay safe, follow all the government guidelines or directives from both countries, and inshallah we can get out of this challenge or situation. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. Yes, hello. Hello.
Okay, we are back.
Okay.
So I think that's all the time we have for today. And I think
Inshallah.
we could have more talk on zakat. So I think we have covered the talk on the role of zakat in alleviating the burden of those affected by COVID-19 in Malaysia and Uganda. The next topic
Uganda.
I'm thinking
Okay.
is how we're going to face the post in the post COVID-19. So maybe the next
Okay.
topic is the role of social finance in the post COVID-19 era. So I
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Hamza, who is Head of Research and Training, House of Zakat and Waqaf Uganda. And my name is Dr.
Okay.
Yusuf bin Haji Osman from Unishams. So until we see you again in the future date, thank you very much. Thank you everybody who joined us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.